Hey everybody, we're going to start health with a quick review of the skin. Lovely, I know. Alright, so we have this top layer. What's our top layer called? And I left the titles here so you can even see them. This top layer, the part you can see right now, right here, is your epidermis. Your epidermis. And then below your epidermis, you have your dermis. There's 3 layers of skin. Epidermis, dermis, then we have this fat layer, and this is called the subcutaneous layer. Think of babies, they have a bunch of cute fat. It's so cute when they have chubby cheeks, and so you can remember this as the subcutaneous layer. It's cute. Now, we have this gland that has oil or sebum. This is a sebaceous gland. And then you also have, this one right here. This is how you tell the difference, okay? Now this one, you can see the hair. So follow this, okay? So you see the dark hair. This is how to tell. The dark hair, and you follow this down. So this is the hair follicle. Hair goes in the hair follicle. It's attached to this hair follicle, see? And then the sebaceous gland, this is the one where the oil is coming out. And then this one right here, this is your sweat gland. Now look. This, you can even see by the colors. See, this is like grayish or whatever, but up here, see, it's coming out to a bead of sweat. Can you see that? So this is sweat gland. This right here is coming out to like a tannish color, and this is your oil. So this is sebaceous gland, and then this is attached to your hair, and that's your hair follicle. Okay, today we're gonna actually be talking about burns, and so we're gonna be talking about the 3 layers of skin and getting those type of burns. Now we're going to start on page 69, but before we do, we're going to have a quick review of some of our terms. What are the tiny parts that make up the skin called? Yes, they're all your cells. What is your outer skin called? The part we can see. Your epidermis. Now, if you have a thick, hard layer of epidermis, what is this called? Remember we said if you're rubbing a lot, when you're going to the monkey bars or for things, you get calluses, or when you play the guitar, you get those thick things at the end of your fingertips. Those are your calluses. What do you call a raised part of your epidermis filled with a watery substance? That watery substance, that is a blister, and those are painful. And what are 4 signs of infection? P, R, S, and T. Pus, redness, swelling, throbbing pain. All of those. Now, what would be hydrogen peroxide or rubbing alcohol? What do we consider those? Those are antiseptics. And we talked about the coloring matter. What is your coloring matter? It's your pigment. And like if you buy makeup or different things, you can have some that you will, well, this is not for the boys. For girls, you can have eyeshadow, and you'll have to rub it to get a little bit of color. Then you have some where you rub it, and it's like brightly colored. That means it's heavily pigmented. Then we have the brown coloring matter. What's our brown pigment? It is melanin. And, for example, the lighter you are, the less melanin you have. The darker you are, the more melanin you have. What are the sun's harmful rays? These are your ultraviolet rays or UV rays. Now, there are some people that have no pigment in their skin. What is this called? This is called an albino. Then we talked about your skin. The layer of skin beneath the epidermis is the dermis. And we can quickly review the parts of the tooth. What's and the tooth chapter? What's a hardened buildup of plaque? Yeah, it's calculus. A thin covering over the root of the tooth that holds the tooth firmly together. That's your cementum. Decay of teeth or cavities. That's a dental carie. And then you have to get a filling. Which reminds me, I had to go to the dentist yesterday. Well, and technically it's today. But by the time you watch this video, it'll be yesterday. Because I actually broke a tooth and I was brushing my teeth and I thought, oh my goodness, I've just been teaching you about teeth, and then it broke off. It was actually a filling, And when I was brushing my teeth, well, I think it's part of my tooth and a filling, all of a sudden I thought, I'm like, why do I feel like a piece of popcorn? And then I saw blood. The next thing I know, I'm like, oh my goodness, I lost part of my tooth. So I went and got that fixed today. What's a digestive juice in your mouth? It is saliva, the inner part of the tooth containing your nerve and blood vessels. This is the pulp. And the improper fitting of the upper and lower teeth, this is malocclusion. And if you do have malocclusion, you need to see an orthodontist. Now, if you are not familiar with some of these terms, I would really recommend you to be keeping up with these, because it's really important to know this material. And this is just, okay, this is good like for life. It's not just for this class, but it's very practical. That's one thing I like about health, because you can just use it even today, like I said, with my broken teeth. Okay, now we are going to be talking about, or starting on page 69, the color of hair. The color of your hair is determined by the pigment that is deposited in new hair cells before they grow out of a follicle. Red hair contains an iron pigment that is not found in any other color of hair. Red hair is actually the most rare, and so I think red hair is so cool. As people grow older, pigment is no longer deposited in the new hair cells on the head, and the hair gradually loses its color, which is so sad. Ever since I was like a teenager, I always had 2 white hairs. Now, I don't know what's happening. I think I'm just getting really old, guys, because all of a sudden I'm like, where are all these white hairs coming from? Because what's happening is my hair is losing its color. It's losing its pigment. Tiny bubbles of air in the hair make it look white. A mixture of pigmented and unpigmented hair usually appears gray. Scientists have not yet discovered why hair loses its color. What do you guys think? Have you ever heard your parents or someone say, "You have given me all my gray hairs"? I don't know where mine are coming from. Now, below, this is, we're on page 70 now, so if you're following along, a layer of padding. Below the dermis lies the subcutaneous layer. It's so cute. So what I want you to think of is, think of a baby, and you pinch the chubby cheeks, or as Dennis the Menace, like, cheek pinchers, and just think of pinching the cheeks, and you say, oh, it's so cute, okay? So when you think of so cute, you can think of pinching the fat of the cheeks, which, think cute, subcutaneous layer. This is the fatty layer that stores energy, okay? So you have the epidermis. This is the part we can see. Below the epidermis is dermis, and then underneath you have a fat layer, which is called your subcutaneous layer. Like the epidermis, the subcutaneous layer varies in thickness from one place on your body to another. This fatty layer cushions your muscles and bones against shocks and jolts, and during cold weather, it helps hold in your body heat. So it helps keep you warm, your subcutaneous layer. You might, like I said, like your book said, you might notice that you have more layers in certain places than others. For example, like when you sit down, you might notice you have a lot of layers down there, which also helps if you were like me and you got into trouble as a kid, because those layers help. Now, let's talk about the 3 layers of skin. Can you name the 3 layers of skin? Epidermis, dermis, subcutaneous layer. Now, a burn can affect 1, 2, or all 3 layers. A first-degree burn, okay, so let's think of it. First-degree burn only affects the first layer. So first-degree burn would just be affecting the first layer, which is your epidermis. So this is a mild sunburn or scald, affects only the epidermis or the outer or first layer of skin. The burned area appears red and feels painful, but there are no blisters and the skin is not broken. For first-degree burn, highlight this or underline this, okay? For a first-degree burn, you should put the burned area under cool water immediately or apply a cold, not icy, wet cloth on it. If If the pain continues, apply a first aid cream or spray, which is cool because Griffin just said today in Zoom that he made a first aid kit. So, right away, if you get a first-degree burn, you should put cool water on it, but not icy cold, and a cool wet cloth. So cool wet cloth, or put cold water under it immediately. This has happened to me several times when I've been curling my hair or straightening my hair. Maybe I touched it really quickly and no skin broke, but all of a sudden it got really hot, or maybe you touched a hot pan and your skin got really pink and hot all of a sudden. Immediately put your skin under some cool water. Maybe you were out in the sun too long on Sunday with that nice weather and you got all sunburned. Well, that's what you're supposed to do. If the pain continues, apply a first aid cream or spray. Now, some people would say, back in the old days, they'd say, oh, put some butter on it, or put some grease, put some fat on it, because that will make the pain go away. Don't do that, because that's actually what it does is it seals in the fat. When you put a layer of fat over it, it keeps in the heat, and then it increases the chance of infection. Butter also contains salt, which stings when applied to a burn, so don't do that. So, first layer, first-degree burn, what happens? I burned myself on my curling iron, or I touched the stove really quickly and no skin broke. You go run it under cold water or cold wet cloths. Okay, gotta know that. That's really important. I'm telling you, underline this. You'll need to know it. So that's what you need to do, cold wet cloths and cold water. Just the first layer of skin. Second-degree burn. Second-degree burn is now affecting the two layers of skin, epidermis that you can see and the layer right underneath, which is your epidermis. A second-degree burn, such as a severe sunburn, burns through the epidermis into the dermis, the second layer of skin. Many burns caused by an electrical appliance or a boiling liquid are also second-degree burns. Now, I told you about my curling iron. Seriously, when it happens, it usually does not break the skin. It just becomes like a little red or something, or maybe I've gotten it right here. It hasn't broken the skin. But if it does break your skin, like they said, a lot of electrical appliances, I would say if you ever ironed and you touched a hot iron, that probably would break your skin. And they're saying other appliances. I'm sure if you touched your the inside of your oven or something like that, that might give you a second-degree burn. So, or a boiling liquid, like, let's say you had a boiling pot of water, someone knocks it over, you're probably going to get second-degree burns. A second-degree burn forms blisters and feels extremely painful. If the blisters break, the skin appears wet and oozy. Ouch. Like a first-degree burn, a second-degree burn should be put under cold water or have cold cloths applied to it immediately. So I want you to underline that sentence and this next sentence. So underline that. A second-degree burn should be put under cold water and have cold cloths. So same as first-degree burn. You should gently blot the burned area dry and cover with a dry, sterile bandage. So this is the difference. First-degree burn, just run it under cold water or cold wet cloth. Second-degree burn, after you do that, then you need to blot the area dry and cover it with a dry, sterile bandage. Why is this important? Because remember, the second-degree burn breaks the skin open. So you need to cover that wound so it doesn't get infected. Now, it says, and this is important, but you don't need to underline this, do not use cotton balls on a severe burn because loose fibers, like a cotton ball, it will stick to the skin, causing an infection. Try not to break the blisters because an open burn can become infected easily. Depending on the location of the burn and how large an area it covers, a second-degree burn may require medical treatment. Okay. Now we're talking about a third-degree burn, and these are really the scariest. In a third-degree burn, the subcutaneous layer, that fat layer, has now been burned. Layer of skin is involved, and the entire thickness of skin is destroyed. The burned area may turn black or white. And I saw this one girl. She had been involved in a fire. I think it was in her shed or something, and literally her skin was, because she was African American, her skin was black, and then in huge spots it had been white, and also pink, like reddish pink, like it had just become scarred that way because she got involved in a third-degree burn when she was just a little child and she lost her arms and different things. When I was a teenager, one of my cousins got really burned in a fire accident. It was a fire pit. They were all around the fire pit and it exploded, and like 95% of her body had been burned, and she had tons of third-degree burns. They ended up having to use like shark skin and different things to replace the skin and stuff that she lost, because shark skin is like it's like similar to human skin if you need that. But burns are no joke. They're very dangerous. So it is very careful, or it's very important to be careful around fires. So let's see. The burned area may turn black or white. Because nerve endings have been damaged or destroyed, there may be little or no pain. Anyone with a third-degree burn needs emergency medical treatment. Highlight that right away. Or underline, anyone with a third-degree burn needs emergency medical treatment. Do not touch, clean, or apply any medication to a third-degree burn, and do not remove any clothing that sticks to the burn. If possible, cover the burned area with a sterile nonstick bandage or pad or clean cloth, such as strips of a clean sheet. Covering the burn will help prevent infection and will help relieve the pain, if any, by keeping oxygen from the burn. So let's go over that. If you get a first-degree burn, immediately run cold water or cold cloths. That's just the epidermis. If you've burned the epidermis and the dermis, you need to immediately run it under cold water and cloths, and then you need to blot the area dry and put a sterile bandage around it. And if you get a third-degree burn that affects all 3 layers, don't touch it unless you're covering it, and you just immediately need to get emergency medical help, because that's very important. That's not good. Now, your skin at work. For some reason I read that as like your skin at work, like it's working, but sorry. Let's keep focusing. The dermis contains sebaceous glands, or oil glands, which are connected to the hair follicles. This is what I was showing you before. You have your hair follicle, the hair, and then right next to it, you have the sebaceous gland, and this is your oil glands. The sebaceous glands produce an oily substance called sebum. Now, sebum, which is released through the hair follicles to the surface of the skin, spreads over the skin to keep it smooth and soft. This thin layer of oil that covers your entire body helps waterproof your body and prevents too much water from evaporating through your skin. If you stay out in the sun too long, your skin becomes dry because the sun dries the sebum faster than the dermis can make it. Wind also dries the sebum on your skin. If the skin does not have sufficient oil, it becomes so dry that it cracks. In the wintertime, it gets really dry, right? And then your skin sometimes cracks. When I used to live in Las Vegas, they didn't have a lot of humidity, and it was very hot, like a dry heat. So it dried up my skin like all the time. But do you guys would you say you have an oily face or not an oily face? My face, it's really weird. I actually tend to sweat in my face the most usually, or at first. But normally I feel like my face is just kind of dry, like I need moisture. And same thing with my head, like if I'm taking a shower or something, a lot of times it just stays dry. Some people, they like feel like they need a shower, wash their hair like every day because it gets so gross, but it just depends. So this is your sebum, and so you have your hair follicles, and attached, like even on your arm, you have hair follicles, and then next to the hair follicle is your sebum, or your sebaceous glands, which produce this oil called sebum. controlling your temperature. Your skin contains 2 to 3 million sweat glands, which help your body to maintain a normal body temperature of about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And I think I had a student one year that called them sweet glands because they read it wrong. And then we were like laughing about this, but this is your sweat glands. Sweat glands are very plentiful under your arms, on the palms of your hands, on the soles of your feet, on your back, and on your forehead. Mine, I always, like I said, I sweat the most on my forehead and my face. I don't know where you guys are. My friend, she would sweat a lot, like on her arms. Some of you might sweat a lot on your back. Just depends. Everybody is different. The sweat or perspiration travels from the sweat glands through tiny tubes leading to pores or tiny openings in the epidermis. So you sweat a lot. It opens up your pores. You start sweating. The good thing is you sweat and then it cools you down. But some of you, this is why you need to start wearing deodorant if you have not worn deodorant already, because sometimes after you're sweating a lot and then you start to really stink. And then that's no bueno. Nobody wants to smell that, and especially around this time, and you guys aren't here right now, but a lot of times when kids come back in from recess, I'm like, phew-wee, this air stinks, and it's 4th grade, so hopefully you guys start to use some deodorant if you need it. Now you can see in the picture the sebaceous gland, the hair follicle, and the sweat gland right next to it. Although the sweat glands remove some water from your body, their main purpose is to cool your body as the perspiration evaporates. You might have noticed this before. You will sweat, and then your body will cool off. You might sweat and then say, okay, I feel a little bit better. You might be super hot, sweating a lot, and then you're like, ooh, I'm getting a little chilly. It's because you're sweating, or you might notice that for your fever, your temperature builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. You finally, you're taking your Tylenol or whatever you're taking, and then it breaks your fever, and then you just start sweating profusely because your body is cooling itself down. These glands never stop working. The perspiration usually evaporates into the air before it collects and drops. However, on hot days or whenever you are involved in strenuous activity, large drops of perspiration often form on your skin. Sometimes when the weather is humid, perspiration collects on the skin faster than it evaporates. As a result, you feel hotter than on a less humid day. When you are sweating and it is very humid, you're like, ooh, it feels hotter than normal. It's because it's like collecting, these sweat drops are forming, and they're just staying on there before it evaporates. Now that's why in Las Vegas, like I was saying, where I lived, where it was dry heat, you had to be really careful that you didn't get dehydrated, because it was so dry there that as you were sweating, you almost never looked like you were sweating, because it evaporated from your skin and your face as like almost as fast as you were losing the sweat. So you just felt like you weren't losing as much water. But you had to be careful, because some people would like pass out from sweating so much without realizing. The blood vessels, we're on page 72 now. The blood vessels in your skin help keep your body temperature normal too. As food is broken down in your body, energy and heat are produced. Vigorous exercise also makes heat in your body. Some of this heat passes to the outside air through the blood vessels in the skin. When you get too warm, the tiny blood vessels in your skin expand so that more blood can flow into them. Some of the extra heat from the blood then passes through the skin to the outside air. Whenever your body gets cold, the blood vessels in your skin contract. And then less blood flows into the skin, and a smaller amount of heat passes through the skin to the outside air. So whenever your body gets cold, the blood vessels are like and they're trying to stick together, and then less heat escapes out to the outside air. But then if you're cold, so it all sticks together. All right, let's go over a quick checkup. Name the fatty layer of skin that stores energy. Remember, we said the fatty layer. Think of a fat baby. It's so cute. Subcutaneous layer. How should each burn be treated? And you need to know these. A 1st-degree burn, Remember, it is put the burned area under cool water and apply cool cloths. What about a second-degree burn? A second-degree burn, you would do it just like a first-degree burn, cold water, cool cloths, and then pat it dry and put a sterile bandage on it. What about a third-degree burn? Emergency medical help immediately. Now, what type of burn affects the epidermis and dermis? Epidermis, dermis? Second degree, yeah. What type of burn only affects the epidermis? First degree burn. What type of burn affects all 3 layers of skin? A third degree burn. There you go. What is another name for the oil glands in the dermis? It is your sebaceous glands. What is the oily substance? Sebum. And how does perspiration leave the body? How do you perspire? I'm perspiring. You perspire by sweat glands. Okay, what will covering a third-degree burn prevent? Why do you cover a third-degree burn if you need to? To prevent infection. Okay, so your homework for tonight is you're supposed to be reading, and I want you to do this. Reread pages 64 through 72. Okay, so after we get done with this, your job is to reread page 64 through 72, go over those terms, okay? You will have a quiz tomorrow, so it's very important that you go over those again. And it says also that you're supposed to do section B, page 79. Section B, page 79, and this is also written in Google Classroom. And go over anatomy worksheet 5, the one about the skin. Okay, and if you can't find that, then look at it on your book. Know your epidermis, dermis, subcutaneous layer. Know the sebaceous gland, hair follicle, and sweat glands. Also be reading over those pages. Now it says do section B. It's a lot of terms to write down, to be honest. So on page 79, it's 12 terms to write down the definitions for. I'm going to say, if you're watching this video right now and you can see me, that instead of writing them all down, you can look them up, say them out loud, and be done with it, okay? Yes, I know. You're welcome. You're welcome. But that's only if you're watching this, because if you're not watching this, you don't see that I just said that. But, and yes, we will have a quiz on Wednesday, so do your best, and happy Cinco de Mayo. Adios.